Rebel salute, rebel salute. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, welcome to another live session with your boy Kenya Revolutionary. Today, as you can see, the topic is simple. The Kenyan people are the new opposition. And that's where we are right now. The Kenyan people are the new opposition. We don't have an opposition. We used to think that Azimio are the opposition, but no, we don't. We can all agree that Ruto has let us down as Kenyans and has sold us out to the West through the IMF and the World Bank, okay? And the opposition seems not to care about the cost of living or our rights or the rule of law. They only care about positions in the government. And as you listened yesterday, as Raila came out and gave a groveling speech to his followers, trying to explain or justify why we should have a referendum, and he basically rubber stamped approving the report, the NADCO report. The NADCO report, if you have any idea of what's going on, majority of Kenyans were never in support of these talks at Bomas. They felt that it was a waste of time. It was unnecessary because all the issues that were being discussed there could have simply been brought to the parliament. But they chose not to do so. They chose to meet at Bomas, spending millions of Kenyan taxpayers' money while doing so. So now that these Azimio folks have agreed to this, again, it was obvious they were going to agree on this proposal because they wanted this, even though the Sifunas, the Railas, the whatever, they always say they don't want Sumkati. But they always mentioned that they wanted something akin to the 2008 Kofi Annan Accord, okay? If you remember, after Kibaki rigged the elections and we had post-election violence, Kofi Annan came to the country and negotiated a deal between these two guys. It was a power-sharing deal. And that's what Raila told us when he first started this Mandamano 7 months ago. He came out and said he wanted something similar to what happened to the Kofi Annan Accord, okay? And if you remember, the main thing that came out of that was a power-sharing deal. So basically, Raila Odinga was telling us that he wants a power-sharing deal. And power-sharing deal means he will have a position in the government, an influential position, okay? So when he comes out and say he doesn't want the Sumkati, he doesn't want a political office, he just cares about electoral justice and the cost of living, it's obvious that he's not being truthful about this. And I will show you how, okay? So let's look at what these Azimio folks were saying during the Mandamano and what they meant when they say they wanted something similar to the 2008 Kofi Annan Accord, okay? So let's check it out. By the way, if you want to join me, I'll leave the link to the chat here. Click below to join the live studio, okay? So if you want to join, I'll leave you the link. I told you guys I'm always leaving the links for anyone who wants to speak their mind and wants to challenge, comment, say something about how they feel, to come in and let your views be known. Like I said, here I'm not opposed to having somebody with a different view. But anyway, let me play with this clip, which shows you that even though Raila gave us a laundry list of what Kenya Kwanza brought to the table, and in his view, he was trying to tell us, convince his supporters at least, that he wasn't up for it. He wasn't really looking for those positions. And if there was any of those demands or those the agenda that Kenya Kwanza brought to the table, if they were to be realized, it has to go through the referendum. Yes, we knew that. We know that anytime you need to change the constitution, you have to have a plebiscite. We know that, Raila Odinga, okay? So this is not new. But the fact that he was acting like he doesn't want this position is what is frustrating for most Kenyans, okay? And hopefully frustrates most of his loyal followers, because he's being disingenuous, okay? All he had to do is come out and say, yes, listen, I want a power sharing deal, and not pretend that, you know, these mandamanos are all about cost of living coming down and electoral justice. That was just a red herring. The real reason why Raila wanted all this stuff was for him to have a power sharing deal where he can have an office. And now you see, that's the reason why he agreed and rubber stamped this proposal to go through, because he wants those things to be brought. He wants a constitutional change. He wants a referendum to happen so he can have that post as the official opposition of the opposition, or to be the prime cabinet secretary, or to become the prime minister. But here's the video that I want you guys to listen to this. This is 7 months ago. This is the initial demand that the Azimio folks wanted. So let's listen to this, and I will come back with some more, okay? So let's take a look and stay tuned, okay, ladies and gentlemen? All right, let's go to it. Let's get to it.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga's call for talks akin to the 2008 National Accord has split, as you heard in that report by Ibrahim Karanja, opinion among the political class. Kenya Kwanza allied leaders have trained their guns on Odinga, accusing him of angling to force a power-sharing deal with President William Ruto. And while the president has insisted on the parliamentary approach, Odinga and his allies are not keen on pursuing that route, arguing that the intended results will not be achieved. And as the push and pull over the format of dialogue continues, NTV's Sydney Chazima now dissects the nitty-gritties between the two formats.
Our suggestion is to have a conversation at the national level through a process akin to the 2008 National Accord.
Raila Odinga's statement was a flashback to the years when the country was recovering from its worst political dispute that plunged the country into post-election violence. Following the peace agreement between the late former President Mwai Kibaki and Odinga, the National Accord and Reconciliation Act of 2008 was enacted, paving way for the agreement on the principles of partnership on the coalition government. With the National Accord came four main agenda that have in a way been replicated in Odinga's latest list of irreducible minimums to the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Agenda 1 was cessation of hostilities, the violence. So perhaps even in this discussion, Agenda 1 is cessation of maandamano. And then Agenda 2 could be electoral reforms.
But in calling for talks anchored on the National Accord format, Odinga appears to have rattled the political class.
We are saying that gone are the days when you will give government ultimatums, when you want to blackmail government so that you can get your way.
We saw a man walking back on his words. We were concerned that either he hadn't been completely forthright with members of his team.
It is not proper to think that the only thing that came from the National Accord was a government of national unity. While that was one aspect, but the process in itself was as important in isolating the issues, in allowing everybody to be on board.
While extending an olive branch to Raila, President Ruto called for a purely parliamentary approach to the talks. The president, whose ruling coalition enjoys a majority in both houses, maintains that the process will be fair.
We've sorted out matters in a bipartisan way in Parliament before, irrespective of what numbers there are.
It is the resolution of this meeting that a purely parliamentary process will not serve the intended ends.
The idea that the president and the ruling party has a head start because of numbers cannot be overruled. But that's not the discussion. I remember when the IPPG discussions or the earlier processes that did away with Section 2A, Honorable Dalmas and team were only superior by one against the opposition.
But this will not be the first time Odinga is engaging in talks through parliament. In 1997, the Inter-Parties Parliamentary Group, IPPG, comprising of members drawn from KANU, DP, Ford Kenya, Ford Asili, and Safina, brought about reforms, some that got rid of detention without trial, and the extension of Kenya's Electoral Commission to incorporate members nominated by the opposition.
Political parties, depending on their strength in parliament, were allowed to nominate certain individuals who are then appointed by the president. While that perhaps gives a feeling that every political party is represented, it is sometimes one of the most challenging, because then commissioners get there and serve the interests of political parties as opposed to the bigger country.
While the push and pull between the political class continues on what format of talks should be applied,
the discussions can be held outside parliament. But for them to gain legality, then you need to have parliament either pass a law or begin certain discussions that will bring certain sets of amendments on specific laws that allow those discussions to gain a force of law. So either way, we can't avoid parliament.
Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters,
One simple
friends and enemies. I think you've seen. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Sorry, guys. My stuff was. Sorry about that. Okay. There was a little malfunction there, but I've just fixed it. So hopefully we are good. Anyway, back to the talks. From that video you saw, that was 7 months ago. I've been saying this. The Azimio folks, even though they were trying to convince us that they did not want this position, but they mentioned very clearly from the get-go that they want something similar to the 2008 Kofi Annan Accord. In translation, they wanted a power-sharing deal. All this talk of the price of living, the cost of living, and all this stuff, this was just a talk, okay? It was a reason to gather people, to get people to go to the streets and go to Mandamano, okay? And after the chaos, now they, they forced the government to have a sit down with them so they can have these talks. And now they're moving to the next step, trying to implement this this thing. And Ruto knew this all along. Like I said in my previous video, that Ruto made it very clear that he knows what Raila wants. He knows who Raila, he knows what will make Raila stop, okay? The Mandamano. And I mentioned, in order for us to actually agree to this nonsense that these guys had, the NADCO nonsense, as I call it, they'll have to create an environment which will force us to think that agreeing on these NADCO recommendations is the best thing compared to the alternative, which will be the crisis that this two will create, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza will create. Because as it stands right now, if they were to go to the parliament and pass this thing, it will go to a referendum. And I can assure you that the Kenyan people will reject that. They will vote no for a new for amendment of the constitution. The problem is not the constitution. The Kenyan people understand that. The problem is the cost of living. The policies that Ruto is implementing are not helping the common mwananchi. The taxes that they passed through the parliament with the help of the Azimio folks absconding the vote is what is destroying this country, okay? The corruption, the looting, and the criminal activities that's happening at the treasury, okay? Through this CSS, the scandals, okay? From this administration and the previous ones, okay? Those who stole these millions, those are the people who drove this country into financial turmoil. okay, until we address these issues and audit the debt that we actually owe, that were legally acquired, we shall always find ourselves in the same position, playing musical chairs with this same corrupt, irredeemably corrupt politicians. These are the same faces all through the past 30 years, okay? Whether it's Ruto, Uhuru, Raila, these guys are the same. And it is so apparent. I'm happy with what Raila did yesterday because now it exposes Azimio and Kenya Kwanza to be, they're now showing their real faces, their real intention. And their intention is not to advance the interest of the Kenyan people. So that makes the Kenyan people become the new opposition. Okay, we can no longer look at Raila Odinga and the Azimio and say, let's look at them for them to check the ruling party, okay, which is Kenya Kwanza, the ruling party coalition. Now it is us Kenyans. And the first step that we need to do is stop dividing ourselves, stop distinguishing ourselves as Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Now we need to start looking at us as we the people versus the political class. Let's go after them. Now, I hear a lot of people say that, we should rally around Okiya Mtata, which is fine. I don't mind people rallying around Okiya Mtata, but the danger that we run in is the same danger we'll run in when we put trust in one person. Look at Raila Odinga, for example. There's so much trust that his supporters, I think his supporters suffer from neurosis, okay? They have a neurosis spree. Because these guys just trust Raila Odinga so much. If Raila Odinga was to officially enter, okay, go and shake hands with Ruto, you will see that most of his supporters will start saying that Ruto is actually not a bad guy. It's actually Gachagua that is a bad guy. Just because they enter negotiation with or a handshake with Raila Odinga. Just like, remember with Uhuru. Uhuru used to be the most evil man, okay, before he got into the handshake. Once he got into the handshake with Raila Odinga, now the Azimio folks are now waxing lyrical of how the good things that that Kenyatta did for Kenya, while we know that's not true, okay? So that's what I'm saying. That's the danger of actually endorsing one person and putting all your eggs in trusting one politician. I don't mind if we prop up Okiya Mtata. His track record speaks for itself. The guy has been fighting for Kenyans. But I fear that if we put that pressure on him, if he does anything contrary to what we expect from him, it might go left. But as it stands right now, the number one step is that the Kenyan people should recognize that now they're officially on the opposition side. There's no opposition. You do not have representative at the legislative body represented you. You do not have a president, okay, at the executive that's advancing your interest, okay? The guy just, as you can name it. You can come up with any reason. This guy is, all the moves he's making are not leading us to the right place. But the first step, as I mentioned, is to recognize that we, the people, are in the opposition. We do not have people represented. So what's the next step? Now, the next step is this. First of all, stop referring to yourself as Azimio or Kenya Kwanza supporter. Okay? Start holding these representatives responsible and accountable. Anything they do as of now, let us make it clear that we want to get rid of them if they don't advance our interests. We have to do that. We have to do that. Let's give them the Murkomen treatment. The treatment Murkomen got when he went to Bomet trying to speak to the Wananchi, and they heckled him down. This is the same thing we should do with the same Azimio folks and the Kenya Kwanza folks. We have to take charge. These guys need to know that we are in charge. We need to exercise our power. Take that donated power back to our hands from these politicians. That's the only way these people are going to listen to you, because as it stands, they're breaking every law and they are ganging up and creating positions for themselves to pay themselves hefty salaries, and they don't give about the mwananchi. So we need to take back that donated power we donated to them. Let's go back to the constitution. Let's not have a referendum. Let's exercise our power that was enshrined in the constitution. We the people. It is not time to identify yourself as Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. It is time for you to identify yourself as Kenyans, okay? Because we are the one who are getting the worst end of this stick, okay? We are the official opposition. The Kenyan people are the official opposition as of right now. Soon as Raila made the pronouncements yesterday that he embraced this report, it was official now. It is official. We are officially, we the people, Kenyan people, are the new opposition. And now that we are in the opposition, let's carry out ourselves, since these guys, the senators and the MPs, cannot check the executive, okay? Since these guys cannot legislate, they cannot get to an agreement to bring the cost of living down, but they're quick to agree on new positions, you know, they're quick to agree on amending the constitution so they can create positions for themselves, so they can pay themselves high salaries with police bodyguards, with trappings of power, red carpet, luxurious cars that we, the taxpayers, shall pay. It is time to bring back that power, that donated power that we gave these politicians, these senators, these MPs. Let's take it back. And the only way we can exercise this is for us to recall these representatives. It's either they do what we say, or we recall them. Actually, if it was, it's not even up for discussion. We should recall them. All of them, except maybe with the exception of Okiya Mtata, who has been doing a great job, who understands his responsibility as a lawmaker. The rest, we need to recall each and every one of them. But step by step, we need to recognize that we, the Kenyan people, are the opposition. We don't have an opposition in Kenya. Kenya Kwanza and Azimio are the same. It's two sides of the same coin. And it's conmanship that they're playing around. Okay? So we have to take that responsibility that we gave them. We delegated this power to them for them to do X, Y, and Z to advance our interests, but they have failed. Instead, they are spitting on our faces by creating position for themselves and trying to play with us, telling us that they are discussing cost of living. Okay? So we need to recognize that. Let's stop this tribal groupings. Ati sijui watu wa Mount Kenya, watu wa Nyanza, watu wa Coast, watu wa sijui Central, watu wa Rift Valley. We need to quit that. But these politicians, don't you find it interesting that these guys always, they recognize, it's by design. It's not an accident. People like Maina Njenga or any politicians that come out, they always say, this is the kingpin for Mount Kenya. Or you hear, Raila is the kingpin for Nyanza. Or you hear, this is the kingpin for Ukambani. Or this is the kingpin of the coast. Why do they do that? It's done by design. Or this is the kingpin for Western Province. It is done by design because they want to watawanyisha at the kingpin of Rift Valley. Cost of living does not care about kingpin. Cost of living is high to the people who live in Rift Valley. It's high to people who live in Central. It's high to people who live in Nyanza. It's high to people who live in Nairobi. It's high to people who live in Mount Kenya. It's high to people who live in Embu, Wajir, everywhere. Cost of living doesn't come with a tribal affiliation. Our watu wanatucheza sote. And it's more than clear now. I'm glad I can see a lot of Azimio people who are disappointed because all this time, some of us, we finally realized in 2017, well, we tried to wapisha Raila Odinga as the people president, and he turned his back on us and spat on our faces. Okay? And 5 years ago, some of you did not believe that this guy is playing us. Now you can see clearly that he cares only about his position. Ulisikia? You know, yesterday I told you, he was giving us a speech trying to explain that hizo macheo ni vitu came from Kenya Kwanza. While he's forgetting that 7 months ago, he was talking about this position, the Kofi Annan Accord stuff. Power sharing deal. That's what he has always wanted from the get-go. Lakini anajifanya na mambo ya electoral justice, cost of living. And you'll see, now they'll start talking about referendum. And the talks about cost of living will just disappear. Nyinyi mtasahau tu. Na mtachezwa. But it is clear now that we, the people, the Kenyan people, who have the sovereign power, are the new opposition. And guess what? We have the power to get to exercise our power by taking back that power back in our hands and taking these guys out. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comments, I didn't want to stay long today. That's all I have to say. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. Find me on YouTube. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. And subscribe, like, share, and comment if you're following. If you haven't following me on X, I'm also on X as Kenyan Revolutionary or K Revolutionary. Follow me and comment. Tell me what you think. I'll talk to you guys later. And peace and blessings.